Hello, welcome to episode number 7 of this Django class-based views series. In this episode, we're going to be talking all about mixins and how to use them. Mixins, to me, are what make class-based views viable, and is the reason why most Django developers use class-based views in their code. What mixins do is allows us to make modules that can be included into all of our views. Let's take a look at how Django uses mixins in their generic views, and then we'll take a look at our project and go over some functionality that we can make in multiple places in our code, but just writing it one time. So here in the class-based view, it is based off of object. So object means that it is not inherited from anything. And so all of this property and all of these functions are everything that is in this base view class. If we go down to template view, we will see that it is based off a view, and it also has these two mixins. What this means is that it's taking all the code from the base view that we just looked at, and all of that code is actually included in here. This is called inheritance. And so we're basing it off of this view and also adding in some extra functionality through these mixins. So if we scroll up to content mixin, we're going to see that it has one function. This function is included inside of our template view. And we actually have that function here, get context data, which is called right here. That context mixin is also used in other classes. Any view class that needs a context is going to be based off of another class that has this context mixin, or is going to include the context mixin into the class. They both do the same thing. And this template response mixin does a similar thing. Any class that needs a template is going to have this mixin in it some way or another, where we are calling render to response, which is coming from this mixin, and render to response is going to be calling this get templates name, as well as using these properties here. These properties are all going to be used in here. Okay, so hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Let's go ahead and take a look at our project, and we're going to do 3 things, I think. One thing we're going to do is we're going to limit our articles to be just articles that are public. The other things we're going to do is we're going to take a look and we're going to make create article. We're going to require the user to be authenticated, and as well as updating and deleting articles. We are going to check to make sure that the author is the authenticated user. Okay, so first thing let's do is let's make this home page just have public articles. Filter public is equal to true. Okay, so what this is going to do is, instead of using model, if you remember, model pretty much does article.objects.all. We're going to set this query set to filter the public as true. So now you'll see I have these 3 and 4. So I have 4 total. Before I had 5. I have one article that is not public that I don't want other people to be able to see. But there is a problem. There is a problem here. Even though I can't see it here, it's actually article number 2, and I can still see it. I can still see it if I go directly to the link. And we don't want that. When the article isn't public, we don't want them to be able to go there. So what I would need to do here is on my detail view, I would put this query set here as well. But we do not like repeating ourselves. We want to keep our code dry. Let's do this to verify, and it's a 404. It cannot find it. We don't sometimes this can be a lot more complicated. Here we're lucky we can just do one line. If we need to access the request, such as getting the request user, we wouldn't be able to do this. We'd have to override def get query set. And that's a model that we would need to override. But we don't need to do that. However, we don't want to repeat ourselves. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a mixin and we're going to include it. Luckily for you guys, I've already written this mixin. Here we have this mixin, public articles mixin, and we're going to include it in our detail view and in our list view. Now it's very important to include mixins on the left and our base class on the right. This has, I think it's called MRO, Python MRO. It has to do with how classes inherit. And so we're going to put that on the left side, and we're going to save. And now we will see that we still can only see public articles. So we've taken that code. Now there might be other places in a bigger project, you'll have other places, and you obviously don't want to repeat yourself with that query set, because if that changes, you have to change it everywhere. So we make it a mixin, and now all of these have this mixin. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we cannot update another user's article. I'm currently logged in as admin, and so I'm going to go into another user, and I should not be able to update their article. How we're going to do this is we're going to hook into the dispatch. And what dispatch does is this is when the server first gets the request, it wants to see if it should actually issue the request. So we're going to check to make sure that the user is the author of the object, which is the article. And if they are not, we're going to give a permission denied. If they are, then we can just return the super, which is going to keep going on the dispatch. So I already have this mixin here, so if I include it here on the update view, it should work. Let's see. Okay, so here we can see that I get a 403 4-bit. Now, if I go and I try and edit one of my articles, it should let me in, and it does. So that's pretty cool. I also want to do this on delete. I don't want other people being able to delete other authors' articles. This is kind of the cool thing about how delete view and update view are sharing code, because they both have this self.get object. So I can use this on both classes, and both of them have this self.get object. Here, if I go and delete, it will work. Let's just test it out. Hopefully this doesn't blow up in my face. Great. So I got a 403 4-bit when I tried to delete someone else's article. If I try and delete my own article, it will work. Now I'm down to 3 articles. So, and you can see also the pagination went away from the last episode, because now there's only 3. Okay. So that's pretty cool. I just included that code here. This is essentially the same thing as if I include this code into both of these classes. If I didn't have these mixins here, this is essentially what it is, and it would be doing the same thing. However, as we know, we don't want to do that. So the next thing I want to show you is, like, on create view, we want to make sure the user is logged in. So what we're going to do there is first of all, we need to log out. And then we'll go back into here. And now if we create an article, we can still get here, right? We don't want to do that. We want to include a mixin that also on dispatch, it's saying if the user is not authenticated, we want to redirect them to login. If they are authenticated, then it's just going to run the super, and then it's going to run the dispatch how it was before. So let's go ahead and include that on my create view. And here, this should give us, it redirects us to login, and then we can log in and it will take us to the blog create. We don't want to log in yet. Oh, I actually can't get there. Or do we? We actually don't want to log in yet because third time's a charm, right? I want to show you guys something else. If I go into here and I try and update, I still get a 403. Let's say when the user is not logged in, we don't want to give a 403, we want to redirect them to login, right? So let's make a small modification to our mixin. Now there are better ways to do this, but just bear with me. If you feel like commenting on this in the comments, go ahead. But I'm just going to base user author mixin off of auth required mixin, so I can show you guys a little bit how the process works when we inherit mixins. And I also need to make sure that the request.user is authenticated. So what this is going to do is I have this mixin here, and I'm going to say if the user is authenticated and their ID is not the author, then I want to give a permission denied. Else, I'm just going to do my super, and I'm going to run up the chain. Now, what this is going to do is this is going to hit my dispatch on my next class that this is going into, which is auth required mixin. And then it's going to run a dispatch here, and it's going to say that, hey, this user is not authenticated, so it's going to log me, it's going to send me to the login. Now, as an unauthenticated user, I'm going to try and update, and now it is sending me here to log in. I'm going to go ahead and log in, and now I can see that I can update it. If I try and update another user's while logged in, it is going to give me that 403. So that's pretty cool. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to show you. I think that's a pretty good review of mixins. Just want to say one more thing before we're done. This auth required mixin you will not actually want to be using. You want to use a third-party package called Django braces, which has a lot of commonly used mixins. I highly suggest looking at that and looking through their code and documentation, because it also does a really good job of teaching how to use mixins and the power of them. When you have your project-specific mixins, you will be writing these ones, but things like authentication required are very common, along with they have a lot of other mixins that are really common and really useful. So go look at that. And that concludes this episode on mixins. Hopefully it was informative. I know it's kind of a lot of information, but with more practice, you'll kind of see it. A general rule of thumb, if you are ever repeating code in your view logic, even like things like paginate by, if I have multiple list views and I have everything paginate by 10, I'd make a base list view mixin, or even just a base list view, and inherit from that. And I would have that paginate by there. So if you ever are repeating your code, I strongly advise to put that in a mixin or a base class that you can inherit from. The next episode, we are going to be talking about form view, which is the base for all of our forms. Everything that has forms, such as update view, create view, all of these which have forms inherit from form view. So we will talk about that next episode in episode 8. Until then, have a good time.